I'm fucking shitting myself.
East London, full of culture, rhyming words with other words, and a shed load of passion. Most EastEnders bleed claret and blue, unless they're getting into bar fights every single evening. Unless they follow a club with a rich history. West Ham have never been English top-flight champions, but regardless, they're a big name within the world of English football, producing top talents regularly, winning 3 FA Cups and even the Conference League just a few years ago. Yet since then, things have completely fallen apart. They underachieved last season, and they've been shocking to start this season. So what the hell is actually going on at West Ham United? I lived in East London for a bit, and it's an interesting place. After 2 weeks of living in that area, I was walking down the street. I'd left a tube station, and I go to cross a road, and a guy almost runs over me in a BMW, but he didn't indicate, so I was gonna tell him what was on my mind, and then I saw the car, and I was like, this guy's a drug dealer. So I said, hold on, let me not get involved, and then I walked 30 seconds further down the street, and a guy in a mobility scooter was at an ATM, but it wasn't working properly, so he punched the ATM and it broke and almost blew up. And then I turned around the corner and a guy was getting arrested in the space of 3 minutes, fam. That place is like a GTA lobby. Now, you guys voted for me to wear an Everton shirt on video. I've probably gone through 2 of the most busy weeks of my entire life, so I've only just got round to buying it. Another 6,000 likes on this video and I'll burn it live on camera. And at 800,000 subscribers, I'm getting a Liverpool tattoo, so make sure to hit that big subscribe button underneath the video. But do you like conducting hate watches? Do you like knowing the scores of Lithuanian 4th Division under-21 football so you can fuel your accumulators? And crucially, do you like being given things for free? Well then, boy have I got a deal for you, thanks to today's sponsor, FootMob. FootMob is the best football app on the market. It's used by over 20 million people for a reason, and it gives you all the football information that you could ever need. Thanks to its matchday experience feature, you can see live scores, live stats, XG, momentum graphs, and much, much more, all whilst the game is actually going on. Want to see how badly West Ham's defense has been peppered today? Well, it's extremely easy with their player rating system. Universally accepted as one of the best rating systems that you can possibly get. You know exactly how every single player has performed. FootMob is a class app, and they're doing a class giveaway just for you guys. They're giving away 10 copies of EAFC 26 when the game drops, and 5 Premier League shirts of your choice. All you've got to do is go and download the app, head into the settings, and then redeem the code PL25. You can see me doing it on screen. It is unbelievably easy. And down in the description is the link to go and download the app for yourself. That for a chance to win a new copy of FC26, or even for a Premier League kit of your choosing. Now though, back to the video. Now I want to preface this video by saying directly to West Ham, you lot are pissing me off. I don't know how you lot find yourselves in the predicament that you're in. They're not even one of the biggest 6 clubs in English football, but they're still a side that should be doing well if we were to look at the London League table. And as it stands, things are a complete shambles in comparison to their age mates. You know, last campaign was disappointing, 14th in the league, down towards the bottom in that scrap with Wolves and Tottenham and United for most of it, all of which were having pretty poor seasons by their own accounts as well. And there doesn't seem to be much of a direction, and people will question me saying that they're a big club. I don't necessarily mean they're Manchester United or they're Arsenal or they're Tottenham even. But this is a club with rich history, with World Cup winners for England that have been key parts of the squad, that have won European silverware as recently as 2 years ago, that have an absolutely fuck-off massive stadium, and that earn a lot in terms of revenue, and sell a lot in terms of matchday tickets every week, and have very high attendances for a group of fans that sprawl even outside of London into the Essex area, because there's about 3.5 football clubs in the entire county of Essex. They're well followed and well seasoned. They should be doing better than this, and this season has been no exception. A disappointing, dismal 3-0 defeat to newly promoted Sunderland on the first day of the season, who have then gone on to lose to Burnley in the second day of the season, followed by an absolute battering against Chelsea despite a screamer from Lucas Paqueta. And alarm bells, they shouldn't be going off just yet. It's early doors, but prepare the alarm, innit? At least set it and put your phone into do not disturb, because it's on the way. Get me? The alarm's about to happen, because this team's looking more like West Boko Haram than West Ham right now. This football club's gone absolutely down the pan since Declan Rice got on the overground to North London. West Ham fans are so close to happiness and joy, only to miss out agonisingly because of their own football club's incompetence. Let's be honest, they're not even close. Anyway, to love Ant. At this rate, they're going to be warming up to play in the Championship next season. And part of that is down to recruitment. We're going to talk about that in a lot more detail in a second, right? But these guys aren't even really doing anything in the transfer window right now. They've signed El Hadji Diouf, who's coming as a wing-back from the Czech Republic. Jean-Claire Todibo's signing has become permanent. Mads Hermansen is in from Leicester in goal. And then Kyle Walker-Peters and Callum Wilson are in for depth reasons. But if you're a West Ham fan, you're fuming at the fact that your chief scout hasn't had any job to do for the last 6 weeks now. And it's not like they're trying to actually sign loads of players and getting rejected like Newcastle are. They're just kind of not really doing anything. Mohamed Kudus, meanwhile, will be creasing over at Spurs watching all this unfold. West Ham fans fuming at him going to Spurs and actually maybe enjoying his career at least to some degree at some stage.
You are a Judas.
Then again, he signed for Spurs, so that's not necessarily a guarantee. But honestly, if West Ham were to sign players, it would probably end in disaster anyway. These guys have got an absolutely horrible transfer record, it feels like. Any striker they sign, it immediately falls apart. I'm convinced this football club is cursed. There's a hyena buried under the ground. If West Ham bought prime R9, he'd score 6 league goals in 50 games. And he'd get loaned out to Botafogo 18 months into the signing. It doesn't matter who they are, what sort of name they have, Sebastian Harlash and Lucas Camacha. It doesn't matter what career they had or go on to have after West Ham. While they play for West Ham, they're Andy Carroll. Bro, if Jean-Lucas Camacha tried to walk around Canning Town, it would be over for him. And playing in this athletic stadium as well that they've got now, the London Stadium, of course. They replaced the old bowling ground, you know, the old Upton Park. You need 20/20 vision and a Nikon 76,000 just to see what colour Crescencio Somerville's boots are. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think their manager at this point, Graham Potter, things didn't really pick up too much when he came in last season. It flew under the radar. It doesn't seem like he's got a grasp of the situation right now either. It seems like Potter's running out of spells right about now. Julian Lopetegui will be surprised when he sees Graham walking into the job centre already so soon after replacing the Spaniard.
What brings you here, Potter?
To be honest, I already thought Graham Potter would probably be the first manager to be sacked, just based off how the second half of last season went. There was improvement, for sure. Lopetegui's side was absolutely fucking awful, but it wasn't really enough, really. There was barely any sort of new manager bounce. It's continued, as I said, into this season as well, and it's got him being the first manager to be sacked written absolutely all over it. I just know his coaches are creasing, checking in, looking at his hairline at the moment with the stress this football club's giving him. He might have to move back to Sweden, guys. I don't know if they do hair transplants over there. You know, Brighton, things worked out so well for Graham in an environment that was so well run. And again, we'll get onto this in a second. Then he was unlucky at Chelsea. You know, he was thrown into the deep end, and the deep end being the Pacific Ocean. And he's a 3-year-old child that's never swam before, but has like a Frosty's 25-meter badge stuck to his forehead just to make it seem like he'd swam before. He couldn't swim, is what I'm trying to say. But now at West Ham, things just haven't really seemed to click. And then there's the squad, okay? Obviously, West Ham took a gamble sticking with Lucas Paqueta. That seems to have paid off. Not the paying off that his mates got back in Brazil when he started gambling on his own games. I mean, as in he's actually, you know, got a chance to focus on his football again now. Maybe we'll see the old Lucas Paqueta coming back out again. He just about avoided being banned from football for life due to gambling infringements. So to be honest with you, with the way West Ham play, a lot of their fans are probably being driven into gambling addictions as well.
No.
Lucas will be printing money this season, putting in some of the most shameful performances of all time just so that his bet of West Ham getting relegated can come through. Edson Alvarez, I thought, was a really solid DM, but he wants out at the moment. I think he's had a little bit of a falling out with the manager. I don't know if he's hot-headed. I think he's had fallouts with managers before. But either way, he's not wanted, even though I think he's been pretty excellent. He's no Declan Rice, don't get it twisted, but he was decent enough for the job, and now he's going out on loan after being signed for 35 mil. That just screams yet another loss when it comes to, you know, finances on a transfer for West Ham again. Speaking of midfielders, how is Thomas Souček still alive? You know, let alone still a West Ham United footballer. As a DM, they've got what, Guido Rodriguez. Who even is my man? Some old guy from Argentina that they just randomly stacked a load of cash on again. They've had a nipple in goal for like the last 2 years, but that Tiddy needs some support, as they all all do. And unfortunately, his backline aren't the broad that is needed. That backline is getting back shots, bro. It's all kinds of crazy. I'm talking £40 million Maximilian Kilman. No. I'm talking Jean-Claire Teddy. No. He's not even that bad. I just wanted an excuse to say that pun. Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Yes, actually, to be fair, he's been class. Like, he's probably been the one signing they've made in, like, the last 3 years that's been actually excellent. That man could tackle a Boeing 747 mid-air. It's wild. But overall, their signings just seem to lack a lot of ambition. I mean, Callum Wilson's come in to replace Michail Antonio. What is even the point of that signing? You know, Callum Wilson is a good striker in his own right, has had a really good career, one that's been injury-plagued at times. I've always thought he's been quite underrated, even since he was at Bournemouth. He's a good goal scorer, right? And if he was your third choice striker, you wouldn't really care that much. But what's the point? Antonio probably wasn't going to play that many times. All it's done is made their podcast really fucking awkward.
I can just say something and laugh, and everyone laughs, and yeah.
You've still got missiles flying over the stadium because Nicholas Fulkrug is sending shots over the bar. It really doesn't solve the problem. Kyle Walker-Peters should be a backup. If he's starting, major issues. No offense to Kyle Walker-Peters. Did get relegated with Southampton not that long ago. If you're starting Kyle Walker-Peters at right back, you're gonna be in a relegation battle. And it makes it sound like it's his fault. I'm just saying. Mads Hermansen's okay. Hasn't been the same goalkeeper since he got injured, I think, for Leicester last season. Had a shocker on his debut. Juve, don't actually mind. That's actually a pretty decent one. Young player who looks like he could be pretty good. That's one bit of astute business for a side that doesn't do it very often and that finished 14th in the league last season. Other teams have been improving around them. You know, what might help them is the fact that Brentford have got worse, have lost their manager, have lost their backroom staff. Teams like Wolves haven't really improved as much as they probably need to escape a relegation battle. But you've still got Sunderland, Leeds and Burnley, who all so far have shown more bottle than all of the promoted teams over the last, like, 2 seasons, bar maybe Ipswich Town. Does anyone even know if Maxwell Cornet is even in the country? The coaches will be surprised when they see him step onto a training field for the first time in March. Jared Bowen, no complaints, no notes, no issues. Might just have to get out of there. I've seen people saying he needs to get a divorce with Danny Dyer. Look, it might just be worth, like, allowing the marriage, bro, because you've got to get yourself out of it. You don't deserve this. But it feels like year on year, certainly since the Conference League victory, the squad is getting significantly worse and nothing's being done about it. Like, what actually did they spend the Declan Rice money on? Should we have a look? Let's have a look at the transfers that have happened, either in correlation to Declan Rice's move to Arsenal or since, and see whether any of them have been a massive success. So Mohamed Kudus came in from Ajax. He was obviously very good for West Ham at first, for sure. Trademark stool celebration. He's been sold to Tottenham for profit. You've got to say that's a success. Edson Alvarez came in really as a Declan Rice replacement, as I mentioned, was very good at first, but has now fallen out with the manager and is going out on loan. £35 million, not really that well spent in my opinion. Again, another signing that doesn't seem to have had any long-term vision, or certainly hasn't worked out from a long-term perspective, and that is something you're going to find that we talk about quite a lot with West Ham signings. James Ward-Prowse, no, has not worked. He got sent out on loan to Forest. Forest didn't rate him, sent him back. Mavropanos, I don't hate it because he wasn't really that expensive, but it's not great. Then 24-25, Max Kilman for that amount of money is just so mad. I'm so sorry. Kilman is not a bad centre-back by any stretch of the imagination, but £40 million is catastrophic given, really, the footballer that he is, the centre-back that he is, and the lack of stability he's been able to achieve. I mean, if you compare that to some of the price tags of centre-backs that have gone to big clubs and had a lot of success, like, off the top of my head, most of the Man City centre-backs are around about that price or less. For reference, as far as defenders are concerned, Christian Mosquera has just gone to Arsenal for £15 million. Is a better player than Max Kilman. He's not going to start for Arsenal, but he's a better footballer, a better defender than Max Kilman is. Jurrien Timber, not the same position, but cost £35 million, has already been significantly better. I know it's much easier to look better in a better side. It's worrying. It's a worrying transfer fee. Mostly you would imagine because he's English, but even then, probably just could have got a better English centre-back as well. Like, considering just 2 seasons before they'd sold Craig Dawson to Wolves for $3 million and then replaced him with a $40 million Max Kilman who hasn't even been that good. Age-wise, yeah, age demographic, that makes sense, but yeah, no, it's not looking good, man. Vicencio Somerville, I think, is a baller, but they're not utilising him well enough. Fulkrug hasn't worked through injuries, and he's been a bit unlucky, to be honest. And then Wan-Bissaka's been a good signing. Ferguson on loan did nothing. Fournette's done nothing. Ward-Prowse, nothing. Todibo, nothing. Well, actually, that's harsh on Todibo. He's been okay. And then this season, Jury's out. Hermanson, all right. Walker-Peters, Wilson, very underwhelming. Other than that, they've just promoted a load of West Ham youth players who are pretty decent, like Lewis Orford, George Earthy, Kalen Casey as well, but it's not something to be all that excited about, and it's nowhere near the level of recruitment or infrastructure that was required when losing someone as pivotal as Declan Rice. Not just as a homegrown talent, not just as a hometown hero, but someone who is arguably one of the best midfielders in the league, even when he's playing for West Ham. It's impossible to replace him completely, but you have to reinvest that money wisely, and West Ham have no transfer strategy at all. And that is helped by the fact they have no managerial strategy at all. The only strategy they have is not being able to decide on the strategy that they want to have. They hire someone with a big name, right? Let's say Pellegrini, for example. They hire someone who is probably, like, pound for pound, one of the best managers on the market, and then they go, boom, he's going to solve the issue, without actually thinking about whether the players that are at the club are going to fit in terms of, for example, Pellegrini's play style, or whether he's necessarily like a long-term option, because Pellegrini's relatively old. They just go, that guy's won some shit, we're bringing him in. And then that inevitably doesn't work, and then they hire someone who is like nitty-gritty Brexit 4-4-2, and to stabilize things and keep them up in the division, and then that works. That worked above schedule, really, as far as David Moyes is concerned, but they've done it with like Sam Allardyce in the past as well. Inevitably, that starts to waver. The fans go, this is kind of boring now, and it is. The football isn't necessarily that exciting, and then West Ham go, okay, let's go grab someone maybe a little bit younger with a bit more ambition, and as soon as the cracks start, you know, 2 years into that project, that is then moved along as well. And they restart the cycle with someone to steady the ship again, the 4-4-2 Brexit guy, and then they go with a big name, and then they rinse, and then they repeat. It means that you have no actual resemblance of any, like, coherent squad. You end up with players that were brought in for a certain manager, a certain style of manager, who then struggle massively when the next style of manager comes in. Because again, if you look at some of the best ran clubs in the mid-table of English football, right, we're talking about Brighton, we're talking about Brentford. These that are engrossed in the data, the analysis, and pre-planning. As soon as someone inevitably leaves, right, Brentford have been doing this since they were in the Championship, by the way. They'd lose Ollie Watkins, they'd sign Ivan Toney. I think that's right in terms of the time. I'm pretty sure, yeah, that makes sense. You know, they lose Ben Rama, they'll sign someone else, right? This is what they do. Brighton do the exact same. They lose Yves Bissouma, they sign Moises Caicedo, they lose Moises Caicedo, they sign Carlos Baleba, or in some instances, they even had those guys already, and they were just ready to promote from within as soon as that original player left. Baleba was, I'm pretty sure they just signed him when Caicedo left, but they have these guys on a list, not that kind of list, but they know as soon as X player within the starting 11 goes, should he outperform us and get a big money move to Chelsea or to Liverpool or to Manchester United, we've got a list of 5 guys that are coming in that we want for smaller amounts of money with a high ceiling. You cannot tell me West Ham do that. There's absolutely nothing about any of these signings that would indicate even any pre-planning whatsoever. It's either someone within the squad or the general squad gets a little bit too old or isn't good enough, or the manager gets sacked and they need to fly into action and bring in players with a decent bit of pedigree with no real planning of how they're going to cohesively come together. And that's highlighted by the fact the squad is old as hell. This is like the second oldest squad, basically the oldest. I think they like joint with like Fulham, I think it is, in terms of overall age. So like they've signed a heap of younger players to try and turn that around over the last couple of years. Now that's the reason why they're not doing well, okay, but you know, it's to do with absolutely shocking recruitment. Like some of the strikers they bought, appalling. No real plan, no real structuring when it comes to that recruitment or when it comes to managers that they want to bring in, okay? That's clearly defined, we've gone over that. But the reason why it's so disappointing is because this is a football club that should be able to do that. West Ham, based in London, immediately they've got an advantage against like Sunderland, okay? Who wants to move to Sunderland? Let's keep it a $1.50. I'm joking, right? But like a lot of players, given the option of going to a side in London or going to a side in the Northwest or the Northeast or in the Midlands, even in Brighton, let's say, or way down south if fucking Plymouth Argyle ever made it to the Premier League, right? There are certain players that would rather have their family live in London, that would just rather live in London, generally speaking, because it's a massive city. It's a global super superpower of a city, right? And it's also just a cool place to live if you like the hustle and the bustle, okay? They have a big advantage there. They have a massive stadium that generates a huge amount of revenue for them. They are a statement football club with history, with good youth recruitment, and like an actual like decent academy network. Well, historically, it's not been as good recently, but historically is amazing. They're based in a massive city, and they also earn a lot of money. Their revenue is huge, bro. They earn so much money. Way more than the likes of Brighton and Brentford when it comes to the day-to-day running of a football club, okay? Way more than the likes of Bournemouth. They should be the next team below the top 6. I'm being so unbelievably for real just when it comes to the finances and everything that this football club has in its favour. It's the perfect blend. It's even got a dedicated fan base in London, and that also represents a pretty underrepresented area of London as well. There's not a crazy amount of big football clubs in East London or further east into Essex. If you're from those areas, there's a really high chance you're going to be a West Ham fan in comparison to like North London, where you're split between Tottenham and Arsenal, or West London, where you're split between Fulham, Brentford, QPR and Chelsea. And they actually spend that money as well. Their net spend is very high over the last decade. It's in and amongst sides that they should be competing with, but as of right now are nowhere near. And so the real crux of the issue, the real problem is the owner. It's David Sullivan, and it's not just him, it's mostly him, but it's the infrastructure also around the football club, and it's the chopping and changing mentality of basically everybody that works or plays there. David Sullivan is not willing to put his own money into this football club. In terms of the amount invested by him and pumped into the club, he basically put money into West Ham during COVID, and that's about it. He doesn't do what other owners do, like Fulham's owners or Brighton's owners. His money is funneled into other things, and it ends up wasting the potential of the actual decent revenue that West Ham end up creating. That revenue is also then wasted even further down the line when you realise that there's no decent recruitment and there's no good framework around this football club. Recruitment's fucking awful. There's no actual planning of anything whatsoever. I genuinely don't know what goes on in West Ham meetings, because they can't be looking ahead at the future for anything. And I sound like I'm being so harsh, but it's so frustrating when you have a football club, and I imagine obviously for the fans as well. You can acknowledge that a football club has near enough everything to be a successful mid-table side. I'm not saying these guys should win the Prem. I'm not saying these guys should win the Champions League, and even winning the Conference League was probably overperforming. But Jesus Christ, you should be finishing top 10 in the league every year with everything that you have going in your favour. But let me know what you think about this West Ham United situation. Can it be resolved? How will they do this season? And will Graham Potter make it to the end of the campaign? I don't think he will. I'm not going to lie to you. Potter, though, used to dealing with Voldemort, so I'm sure he'll be able to deal with David Sullivan. The only difference between them, to be fair, is that one has a nose. I can only assume. If you enjoyed this video, though, feel free to slap a like on it and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Again, 6,000 likes on this vid, I'll burn an Everton shirt live on YouTube, whatever. And 800,000 subscribers, I'm getting a Liverpool tattoo, so make sure to hit that subscription button. You can also follow me on social media. It is at @theofficialfng on Twitter and on Insta. It's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.